For years, the world watched him on the biggest screens. A hero, a legend, a man who could do the impossible. But there was one place he couldn't reach. Not a movie set, not a stunt, not a mission. His daughter's life. For more than a decade, the distance between Tom Cruise and his youngest child didn't explode in headlines. It grew quietly, in the spaces between appearances, in calendars that no longer overlapped, and in memories that never had the chance to exist. There were no interviews, no explanations, just a silence that felt heavier with every passing year. A father slowly faded out of his daughter's everyday world, and a daughter learned what it meant to grow up without him. Suri, now known as Suri Noel, never asked to be famous. She never asked for a last name that followed her everywhere she went, or for a childhood lived under the shadow of cameras. She didn't choose the spotlight, but she was born inside it. She was raised behind closed doors, protected from the noise of the outside world, but not from distance, not from questions, and not from the quiet ache of absence. To millions, she was the daughter of one of the most recognizable men on earth. To herself, she was just a child growing up in a life built by choices she never made. Now at 19, she doesn't speak through interviews or headlines. She speaks through her life, through the path she's chosen, through the name she now carries. Her choices have become her voice, and those choices have left one question hanging in the air. What really happened between a father and the daughter who grew up without him? This is not a story about tabloids, red carpets, or Hollywood spectacle. It's a story about distance, about two people who once stood side by side and now live in two separate worlds. It's about the kind of silence that doesn't come from one big fight, but from time, belief, fear, and decisions that can't be undone. This is the story of a daughter who watched her father from afar, and a father who watched his daughter quietly slip out of his daily life. And to understand how they ended up here, we have to go back to where it all began. When Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes crossed paths in 2005, the world saw their connection before their relationship even had the chance to breathe. Katie, just 26, was riding the warm afterglow of Dawson's Creek's success. Soft-spoken, hopeful, and full of that bright, earnest energy that made people root for her. She wasn't jaded by Hollywood yet, hadn't learned to guard herself against the machinery of fame, still believed in fairy tales, still thought love could exist untouched by the industry's corruption. Tom, at 43, was already an international icon. His name alone could fill theaters, his career defined by films like Top Gun, Jerry Maguire, and Mission Impossible. To most people, he wasn't just a movie star, he was a symbol of unstoppable confidence and devotion to whatever he believed in. He didn't do anything halfway, didn't approach life with caution or hesitation. When he committed to something, he committed completely. And that intensity, that all-consuming focus, could feel intoxicating or suffocating, depending on where you stood. For Katie, it wasn't just another Hollywood romance. Years earlier, she had told 17 magazine that her dream was to marry Tom Cruise. It sounded innocent and impossible, the kind of fantasy meant to stay on magazine pages, a young girl's daydream about a movie star she'd never meet. But when Tom saw her for the first time, he reportedly turned to his team and said, "I'm going to marry her." From that moment on, everything began moving at incredible speed. And that speed should have been a warning, should have made people pause, should have raised questions about whether something moving that fast could possibly be sustainable. But it didn't, because the story was too compelling, too romantic, too perfect for headlines and magazine covers. Their chemistry looked undeniable, overwhelming, and almost cinematic in itself. Cameras caught them traveling, laughing, holding hands, as if they were living inside their own story, untouched by the world around them. Paris, Rome, London, every city became a backdrop for their romance. Every appearance became an event. And Katie, who had spent her career being the girl next door, suddenly found herself cast in the role of her life. Tom Cruise's leading lady, not just on screen, in reality. Then came the moment that stunned everyone. Tom's appearance on the Oprah Winfrey Show, where he jumped on the couch and shouted, "I'm in love." Some viewers thought it was sweet, others thought it was strange, but no one could ignore it. The clip played on repeat. Late-night hosts made jokes. The internet turned it into a meme before memes were what they are today. And people started asking questions. Why did it feel performative? Why did it seem like Tom was trying to convince everyone, including himself, of something? Their love story didn't slowly unfold, it exploded. And explosions, by definition, are destructive. On April 18, 2006, their daughter Suri was born, a child who instantly became the living symbol of their whirlwind romance. Tom called her birth the happiest day of his life and referred to her as a miracle. And in those early photos, you could see genuine joy on his face, genuine wonder, the kind of emotion that doesn't lie. He held her like she was the most precious thing in the world, because to him, she was. But even that deeply personal moment was shaped by the belief system Tom was devoted to, Scientology. Katie, who had grown up in a Catholic household in Toledo, suddenly found herself navigating a world that felt unfamiliar and rigid. Her pregnancy and Suri's birth followed Scientology traditions, including a silent birth, where those present were expected to remain silent during labor. The belief was that any sound or disturbance could create negative impressions on the child's psyche, engrams they called them, traumas embedded at the moment of birth that could affect a person for life. Tom even purchased a sonogram machine for home use so he could personally monitor the pregnancy. Outsiders found it unsettling, intense even, but to Tom it was devotion, structure, and love. It was taking responsibility, making sure everything was perfect, leaving nothing to chance. And in his worldview, that made sense. That was what a good father did, what a devoted husband did. But for Katie's family, watching from Toledo, it looked different. It looked like control masquerading as care.
Their wedding later that year looked like something out of a royal fantasy, an opulent ceremony at a 15th century Italian castle. Katie wore Giorgio Armani. The guest list was filled with Hollywood elites. Cameras captured smiles, luxury, and perfection. But behind the glamour, Katie's parents felt uneasy. As lifelong Catholics, they viewed the new world surrounding their daughter with quiet fear. They saw how their daughter's life had transformed overnight, how she was surrounded by people they didn't know, people whose loyalty seemed to be to something other than Katie's well-being. They saw how decisions about their granddaughter's life were being made according to principles they didn't understand or agree with, and they felt powerless to do anything about it. And slowly, the fairy tale shine began to dull. The lifestyle around them grew more controlled, more private, and increasingly shaped by belief, secrecy, and power. Tom believed deeply in the choices he was making. To him, they were grounded in love, discipline, and purpose. He wasn't trying to hurt anyone, wasn't trying to control Katie maliciously. He genuinely believed he was building the best possible life for his family, according to principles he'd devoted decades to following. Principles that had, in his view, made him successful and fulfilled. But for Katie, that same world began to feel like isolation, like a beautiful cage with invisible bars. She couldn't articulate it at first, couldn't point to any single moment or decision that crossed a line, but the accumulation of small restrictions, small redirections, small limitations on her autonomy began to weigh on her. The constant presence of people she hadn't chosen, the sense that every decision had to align with a larger system she didn't fully understand. For Suri, it became the beginning of a childhood that would never resemble anything close to ordinary. She would grow up never knowing what normal felt like, never understanding that other children didn't have photographers following them, didn't have their parents' relationships dissected in tabloids, didn't have their entire existence defined by forces beyond their control. By 2007, from the outside, Tom and Katie still looked untouchable, the image of a perfect Hollywood family. Red carpets, private jets, magazine covers. To the world, everything looked flawless. The perfect marriage, the perfect child, the perfect life. And Tom and Katie played their parts beautifully, smiled on cue, held hands at premieres, said all the right things in interviews. But inside, cracks were already forming, cracks no camera could capture. Friends noticed that Katie rarely went anywhere alone. Whenever she stepped outside, someone from Tom's close circle, often tied to Scientology, seemed to follow just a few steps behind. calm faces, quiet presence, watchful eyes. They were called assistants, handlers, security. But their function felt less like protection and more like surveillance, making sure Katie stayed on script, making sure she didn't stray too far from the narrative. During one dinner, journalist Maureen Orth noticed a strange tension when fans approached. Katie smiled politely, then said something that felt haunting in its simplicity. "Oh, we don't go outside very much." It sounded casual, but to anyone who understood the structures surrounding her, it spoke volumes. It revealed isolation disguised as privacy, control disguised as protection. Tom remained as intense and devoted as ever, confident, passionate, fiercely committed to defending his beliefs and the organization he supported so publicly. To him, Scientology was not a constraint, it was structure, loyalty, and meaning. It had given him purpose when he was young and struggling, had provided him with tools he believed made him a better actor, a better person, a better father. He wasn't blind to criticism. He heard it, read it, saw it everywhere. But he dismissed it as misunderstanding, as prejudiced against something people didn't take the time to understand. But for Katie, those same walls had begun to feel like a boundary she could never safely cross. Every time she tried to push back, even gently, she felt resistance. Not always overt, not always aggressive, but constant, like trying to swim against a current that never stopped pulling. Her parents watched from a painful distance. Their visits became less frequent, not because they didn't want to see their daughter and granddaughter, but because the visits felt orchestrated, supervised, never quite relaxed. They would sit in beautiful homes and feel like strangers, watch their daughter perform the role of happy wife, and wonder where the real Katie had gone. Conversations felt guarded. Friends said Katie began to sound rehearsed when she spoke about Tom, repeating the same words again and again, as if she were trying to convince not just others, but herself. "He's an amazing father. We're so blessed. I've never been happier." The words were right, but the delivery felt hollow, like someone reading lines they'd memorized but didn't quite believe. The bright spark that once defined her slowly faded, the spontaneity, the warmth, the openness, all of it dimmed under the weight of maintaining an image that felt increasingly disconnected from her reality. Meanwhile, Tom's adopted children with Nikhil Kidman, Bella and Connor, were already deeply Scientologist-controlled. They had grown up inside the organization, had been educated according to its principles, had built their entire social world around it, and they had thrived, at least by Tom's definition. They were loyal, dedicated, committed to the path, and to Tom, that looked like success. So to Tom, it seemed natural that Suri would eventually be raised within the same system. It wasn't a question, it was assumed. His first 2 children had followed this path, his youngest would too. It made sense. It maintained continuity. It ensured she would grow up with the same values, the same understanding, the same tools he believed made him successful. But for Katie, those same walls had begun to feel like a boundary she could never safely cross. Every time she tried to push back, even gently, she felt resistance. Not always overt, not always aggressive, but constant, like trying to swim against a current that never stopped pulling.
Own parents were expressing fear. Not when she couldn't shake the feeling that something was fundamentally wrong, even if she couldn't articulate exactly what. So she began to pull back. Quietly, carefully, strategically. Not in ways that would trigger immediate confrontation, but in small ways, suggesting different schools, reconnecting with old friends Tom didn't know, spending more time in New York away from the Los Angeles headquarters, creating distance measured in miles and choices. By 2010, rumors spread that Katie felt boxed in. She skipped certain church events, claiming scheduling conflicts or Suri's needs. She re-established old friendships Tom had no connection to, creating a support network separate from his influence. And she spent more time in New York, away from the orbit that surrounded Tom in Los Angeles. What looked like distance was preparation. She wasn't drifting, she was planning, studying, learning, gathering information about how to protect her daughter, consulting lawyers quietly, understanding her legal options, building an escape route one careful step at a time. Because she understood that leaving wouldn't be simple, wouldn't be safe.
that she would need to do it perfectly or risk losing everything. By 2011, the change was impossible to ignore. Katie's smiles looked tighter, forced, the kind that don't reach the eyes. Her posture more guarded, defensive, like someone bracing for impact. The fairy tale image had collapsed, at least for anyone paying close attention. And every time she held her daughter's hand, it felt less like affection and more like a promise that she wouldn't let go, that she would protect this child no matter what it cost, that Suri would have a choice Tom's other children never did. June 29, 2012, the day Hollywood froze. News broke that Katie Holmes had filed for divorce from Tom Cruise just days before his 50th birthday. But this wasn't a Hollywood breakup. This wasn't about irreconcilable differences or growing apart. It was a controlled, calculated move for protection and survival, an extraction operation disguised as a divorce filing. Tom later admitted he didn't see it coming. "It hit me hard," he said quietly in a rare interview. "Life can do that to you." And you could hear genuine pain in his voice, genuine shock, because in his mind, everything had been fine. The marriage was strong, the family was intact. He had been blindsided by the woman he thought he knew completely. He didn't know she had spent months preparing for this moment, that every smile had been strategic, every appearance calculated, every word measured, that she had been building her exit while maintaining the facade of devoted wife. Katie changed phones, altered routines, replaced staff she feared were reporting back to handlers. Every move was mapped out like a covert operation. Her father, attorney Martin Holmes, became her silent strategist. Years earlier, he had helped draft the prenuptial agreement, understanding even then that protection might someday be necessary. Now he used that same document to build her escape route, to create legal leverage, to ensure she could leave with her daughter. Katie filed in New York, a jurisdiction known to favor the parent seeking to protect a child's environment and future, not California, where Tom's influence ran deeper, where the organization's presence was stronger, where the outcome might have been different. Everything was done in secrecy. While Tom was away filming overseas, completely unaware, she was filing paperwork that would end their marriage and change her daughter's life forever. He discovered the divorce the same way the rest of the world did, through the headlines. Imagine that, coming back from a day of filming to discover your wife has left you, has taken your daughter, has filed for divorce, and you're reading about it on TMZ? Court filings revealed her motivation in a single word: protection. Katie sought full custody, full control over schooling, medical care, and spiritual direction. Her concern, according to those close to the process, was not aimed at Tom as a father, but at the influence of the powerful system surrounding him. She wasn't saying he was a bad parent, wasn't claiming he had hurt Suri. She was saying that the world he wanted to raise their daughter in was one she couldn't accept, one she had to protect Suri from. Former Scientologists later claimed Katie feared her daughter could one day be drawn toward the organization's intense programs. Programs like the Sea Organization, where members sign billion-year contracts and dedicate their entire lives to the church. Programs that separate families, that discourage contact with anyone deemed a suppressive person, that demand absolute loyalty above all else. That was the future Katie was fighting to prevent, and she was willing to risk everything to do it. The legal battle ended almost as quickly as it began, 11 days, for a marriage that dominated headlines for years, for a couple that seemed inseparable, for a relationship the world thought would last forever. It was over in less than 2 weeks. Tom agreed to provide financial support, substantial support, $400,000 a year in child support, payment for all expenses, healthcare, education, everything Suri would ever need materially. But money was never what Katie was fighting for. Money meant nothing if she lost her daughter to a system she feared. What she wanted was distance, legal distance, physical distance, emotional distance, a clean break that
lighting up
couldn't be
red
undone,
carpets
that
and
couldn't be
captivating
negotiated
fans
away,
everywhere,
that
especially
protected
with
Suri
little Suri's arrival.
permanently.
but after wondering
very
if his
next day,
deep ties to
she and her daughter
Scientology kept them
vanished from
apart.
Los Angeles.
Now that Suri
No
has
forwarding
recently
address,
turned
no
18,
public
she made a
statement,
move that
no
left
explanation,
everyone in shock,
just
including
gone.
her own father.
When photographers
So, is it
finally
really
found
a
them,
bold
they were
step did
quietly
Suri
walking
just
through New
take
York,
that has every
hand in
waves
hand.
due to
No
a
guards,
reason no one saw
entourage,
coming?
no
Almost like a
stage-managed
scripted Hollywood
image,
fairy
just
tale.
a mother
Katie,
and daughter.
fresh off her success,
Katie
public
looked
knowledge
exhausted,
in a
but
17
free,
magazine interview
truly
where
free
she
for the
once
first time
admitted
in
he was her
years.
dream
You
man.
could see it in her
Not long
posture,
after,
in
Katie
her
and Chris
face.
ended their
The tension
engagement,
had
and
dissolved.
Katie was introduced
The
to Cruz.
performance was
The two
over.
hit it off,
For
launching a
Suri,
whirlwind
that
romance that
freedom
instantly
came with
drew the
space,
media's
a
attention.
clean,
For Katie, stepping into
irreversible
Cruz's
separation.
world meant encountering
The
his
father
unique
looked
lifestyle
like
and,
red
particularly,
carpets and called
his
her a
deep
miracle,
commitment to
was no longer there.
Scientology, something she
Not out
hadn't
of
yet
public
experienced.
conflict.
Now,
Not out of
before Katie
anger,
came into his
just
life,
gone.
Tom Cruise had a few
And she was
relationships
6
that
years
didn't
old,
seem to last,
old enough to
and
notice,
some close to
old
him
enough to
suggested
wonder,
it had to do
but
with
too
his
young to
devotion to science, and even
understand why.
reportedly helped him
After the
audition
divorce,
potential
Tom's
part
world
women
and
for
Suri's
Cruise,
world split
hoping to
into
find
two
the right
completely
match who would
separate
also
realities.
accept the church's
In
beliefs.
2013,
As Vanity
during a
Fair
rare
reported,
deposition,
Bo Johansson
Tom was
strongly
asked
denied
whether Katie
it,
had
calling
left
the
to
idea
protect her daughter
demeaning
from
and claiming
Scientology.
only a man
Initially
would come up
resisted
with
the
a crazy
question,
story
then
like that.
acknowledged
But
that
for
it was one of the
curious issue
factors.
for Cruise.
That
When
admission,
Katie entered the
captured in
picture, it
legal
became
documents,
apparent that being
revealed
with
more
Tom
than
also
any
meant being
interview ever
involved with the
could.
church.
It
Speaking
confirmed
of
what
which,
everyone
an
suspected,
actress named
but no one
Nazanin
could
Boniadi
prove.
was even rumored to
Reports
have gone
claim
through a
he saw
vetting
Suri
process
only
to
once
date
after that
Cruise,
meeting.
which
Only
allegedly
once.
involved
A
constant
brief
monitoring
encounter,
and restrictions.
supervised,
This process
strained,
didn't
and
last.
then nothing.
Cruise and Holmes'
No
romance
further
reached a
sightings,
new level
no
when
confirmed
Cruise appeared
visits,
on The
no
Oprah Winfrey
photographs,
Show and made
nothing.
headlines with one of the most
According to
unforgettable
Scientology
moments
doctrine,
in television
when someone
history.
leaves the church
As he
and
spoke
speaks
about
against it,
Holmes,
they can
Cruise's
be declared
energy
a
went through the
suppressive
roof.
person,
In
an
what's now
SP,
known as the
and
infamous
contact
couch
with
jumping
suppressive
incident,
persons is
Cruise
forbidden,
declared his
even
love
if
for
that person
Holmes
is
with
family.
over-the-top
Even if that
enthusiasm,
person is
going
the
so
mother
far
of
as
your
to jump
child.
on Oprah's
The
couch,
choice becomes
with
stark.
Oprah looking
The
surprised
organization
but
or the
unfazed.
relationship.
Cruise continued
Tom
to
never
beam as he
publicly
told the
confirmed
world
whether
he
this
was
policy
in love,
affected his
leaving no
relationship with
doubt
Suri.
about his
But
feelings.
the absence
He then
spoke for
ran
itself.
backstage,
A
bringing
decade
Holmes
without
out in front of the
contact,
audience,
without birthday
where she
visits,
shyly
without
smiled
holidays
and
together,
hugged him.
without
The
any
dramatic
of the
gesture
ordinary
grabbed
moments
massive
that
attention
define
and
a
instantly went
parent-child
viral.
relationship.
Yet it left Hollywood
As years
divided.
passed,
The
Tom
studio
threw
behind the
himself
film
deeper into his
reportedly
work.
wasn't
Film
thrilled.
premieres, world
Instead of
tours,
talking about his
increasingly
film,
dangerous
Cruise's
stunts that
relationship
stunned
antics had taken
audiences.
center
He
stage.
hung off the
It was
side
one of
of
the
planes,
first signs
climbed
that
the
this
world's
high-profile
tallest building,
relationship might be
broke
more
bones and kept
complicated their
filming.
public declarations
On
of
screen,
love.
he was
Cruise
unstoppable,
proposed to Holmes in
fearless,
2005
willing
at
to
the
risk
top of the Eiffel
everything for the
Tower in
perfect
Paris.
shot.
Holmes may not have
Somewhere
received
far
the
from those
classic
lights, his
down-on-one-knee
daughter was growing up
proposal,
without him,
but she did
learning
walk
to
away
ride
with a
bikes,
stunning
starting
5-carat
school,
yellow
making
diamond
friends,
ring. Just a few
experiencing
months later, the
first
couple
heartbreaks and
announced that they were
achievements,
expecting
all
their
without
first
her
child
father.
development at home. He
Meanwhile,
promised to donate the
Katie built an
machine to a
ordinary
hospital
life for
once
her
they were
child in
done,
New York.
but medical
Private
professionals
school,
voiced
dance
concerns.
classes, walks through
Sonograms,
parks,
they warned,
quiet
should only be
cafes,
performed by
no red
trained
carpets,
professionals.
no press
Then,
appearances,
on
no
April
Hollywood
18,
framing.
2006,
She made deliberate
Suri
choices
Cruise
to
was
create
born under
normalcy
conditions
where
that
none
many
had
found
existed
strange.
before.
Holmes
To give
gave birth
Suri
in
the
silence.
childhood she never
Words
had
and
the
sounds
chance
made
to
during
experience
childbirth
in
can
those
be
first
harmful
6
to both
years.
mother and baby.
Those who knew
This
Suri
practically
described her as
agreed to.
bright,
Though many
kind,
wondered how she
grounded,
truly felt about the
surprisingly
time went
normal
on,
for
it
someone
seemed
born
that the
into
demands
chaos.
of Cruise's
Teachers
world
said she was
and the
polite,
constraints placed on
hardworking,
Holmes
no diva
were taking a
behavior,
toll. It was about
no
Katie's
sense of
entire
entitlement,
lifestyle
just
changing.
a regular
Her parents'
kid trying
doubts
to
came to
figure
the
out who she
surface
was.
before the couple's
As she
grand
grew
wedding in
older,
Italy
she
in
began to resemble
2006.
her mother
As the
more.
day approached,
Same
Tom
eyes,
and his
same
love for Katie,
softness,
even
same
though they weren't
resilience.
thrilled with
And
Katie's
whenever her
choices,
father's name
they
came
set
up in
aside their
conversation,
concerns for
she
the
changed
special
the
day.
subject.
It
Not
seemed,
dramatically,
at least for
not
that
with
moment,
obvious pain,
they were willing
just
to give
moved
their
on,
blessing.
like he was
But
someone she
speaking,
used
if
to
their
know,
wedding,
rather than
did
the
you
person
know
who was
that it
supposed to be one of the most important figures in her life? Publicly, Sadly, Tom never spoke about her again. Not in interviews, not at premieres, not anywhere. The daughter he once couldn't stop talking about became a subject he refused to address. Whether out of pain, or policy, or something else entirely, he stayed silent. Privately, insiders said he continued to support her education and healthcare. The money never stopped. The financial obligations were met completely. But a decade passed without a single photograph of them together, as if two worlds had drifted to opposite ends of the universe with no bridge left between them. Then came the shift, a new name and a new chapter. By 2021, she had stepped into her own path, studying at New York's LaGuardia High School of Music and Art, the same school that inspired the movie Fame, a place where talented kids from all backgrounds came to develop their craft. She sang, acted, directed short films, found her voice on her own terms, not as Tom Cruise's daughter, not as a celebrity kid, but as Suri, just Suri. And during her senior year performance, something changed. When the program booklet was printed, one detail stood out. Her name wasn't listed as Suri Cruz, but Suri Noel, her mother's middle name. It wasn't rebellion, it wasn't spectacle, it was identity. A quiet declaration that she was choosing who she wanted to be, and that identity didn't include the name that had defined her since birth. And when she graduated in 2024, that name appeared again, this time carved formally into her future, Suri Noel. Tom wasn't at the ceremony. He was thousands of miles away filming Mission Impossible. For many who remembered the proud new father in 2006, holding his baby daughter like she was his entire world, the contrast was painful, devastating even. Katie sat among the parents, wiping away tears as she watched her daughter step into adulthood, not with a spotlight, but with quiet strength. Pride mixed with sadness, joy mixed with loss. Because this was a triumph, but it was also a reminder of everything that should have been, but wasn't. Later that summer, Suri moved to Pittsburgh to study fashion at Carnegie Mellon University, a prestigious program, competitive, demanding. She got in on her own merit, her own talent, her own work. Katie helped her carry boxes into the dorm herself. No security, no attention, just a mother and daughter trying to build a normal moment in a life that had never been normal. Years later, as Katie worked on a new film project, Suri visited the set. 19 now, confident, composed, and defined by a presence shaped not by fame, but by silence, by choosing to step back rather than forward, by building an identity separate from the machinery that tried to define her. Most people didn't recognize her, and that was exactly the point. She was no longer Tom Cruise's daughter. She was Suri Noel, and her life was finally, truly her own. Yet even now, one truth remains inescapable. Their worlds are still distant, miles apart, philosophically apart, emotionally apart. He continues to break cinematic boundaries, to reach heights no actor has ever reached, even planning to film beyond Earth in an upcoming project, literally going to space for a movie. But the distance between him and his youngest child may be the one gap he can't close, the one mission he can't complete, the one stunt he can't pull off. Those close to Katie say she avoids bitterness, choosing gratitude, growth, and acceptance instead. She doesn't speak ill of Tom, doesn't use Suri as a weapon, doesn't play the victim in tabloids. She calls Suri an incredible person and says her greatest pride is watching her daughter's independence bloom, watching her become someone strong and kind and authentic despite everything she's been through. But even with a new name, a new path, and a life finally lived on her own terms, Suri still carries a story shaped by love, pressure, protection, and the quiet reality of growing up in the shadow of someone the world never stops watching. She can't escape it completely. People still recognize her sometimes, still ask questions, still want to know about her father, still try to pull her back into a narrative she spent years trying to leave behind. For 19 years, the world has seen their lives unfold like a film missing its most important scenes, a legendary actor delivering unforgettable performances, and a daughter who stepped out of his shadow with silent resolve. Two parallel stories that should have been one story, a relationship that should have been rich and complex and full of shared moments, reduced to absence and silence and questions nobody will answer. And now, as Suri Noel builds her own world, one question remains. Will she ever let her father back into her life? Or has the distance grown too wide to cross? Can time heal what silence created? Or are some gaps meant to remain untouched? Because the truth is, nobody knows. Not Katie, not Tom, maybe not even Suri herself. The years have passed, the hurt has settled into something permanent, the absence has become normal, and returning from that kind of distance requires more than just showing up. It requires rebuilding trust that never had the chance to form in the first place. Maybe one day, when she's older, when she's built a life completely separate from both her parents, she'll reach out. Maybe she'll want answers, want to understand who her father really is beyond the headlines and the mythology. Maybe she'll want to give him a chance to be present, even if only partially. Or maybe she won't. Maybe the silence will become permanent. Maybe she'll decide that the father she needed was never there, and the father who exists now is a stranger she has no obligation to know. And that would be her right, her choice. The one choice in this entire story that belongs entirely to her. If you found this story worth your time, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching.